The woman's eyes didn't flinch when she slid the knife across the letter. She read the final line twice, then again. Her hands didn't shake, but her breathing did. In a small Paris apartment filled with books and shadows, Emma discovered that the man she thought she knew was a ghost in his own story, and someone wanted her to stay blind forever. They said Julien Rousseau was the kind of man who didn't speak unless it mattered. He walked like silence had weight, like every movement he made had been rehearsed under the scrutiny of 1,000 eyes. But Emma saw something different. Behind the dark-rimmed glasses and half-smiles, there was a stillness in Julien that felt dangerous, not loud, not violent, but like something that could wait a long time to strike. They met at a philosophy lecture in Montmartre. She remembered the smell of burnt espresso and paper, the heavy scent of old oak chairs. The speaker, some washed-up academic, was ranting about Schopenhauer's theory of concealment, that intelligent people often pretend to be less than they are, that they play dumb, hide their thoughts, manipulate perception. Julien leaned over and whispered, "It's not theory, it's survival." That was the first thing he ever said to her. 3 weeks later, she was living in his apartment. It wasn't fast love, not exactly. It was something more subterranean, more like being pulled under. Julien never asked questions. He observed. He'd tilt his head as if reading the unsaid parts of your soul. And yet, he was warm, curious, strange. He played piano at night, but only when he thought she was asleep, and he never talked about his past. Emma told herself it didn't matter. Everyone had secrets, until she found the note. It was hidden inside a hollowed-out copy of Schopenhauer's The World as Will and Representation. She was looking for a bookmark and heard the faint crinkle of paper. The envelope was yellowed and fragile. Her name was handwritten on the front, in Julien's sharp, clinical cursive. Inside was a single page, 10 lines, no greeting, no farewell. "Emma, if you're reading this, then it's already too late. I've lied to you about everything, but not because I wanted to hurt you. I needed to protect you from what I am. What I am. Not what I've done. What I am." She stood in the middle of the living room, the letter trembling in her fingers. A storm pounded against the windows. And in that moment, the apartment no longer felt like home. It felt staged, clean to the point of being unnatural. There were no childhood photos, no souvenirs, no keepsakes, just books and shadows. Julien wasn't due home for another 2 hours. Emma went to his study. It was locked. He had never locked anything before. She picked up a hairpin from the bedroom drawer, something she hadn't worn in months. Her hands worked instinctively, like muscle memory from watching 1,000 spy thrillers. The lock clicked. Inside, it looked like a different man lived there. There were papers in 5 different languages, maps of cities she'd never heard of, a passport with Julien's photo, but a different name, several different names, and a gun. It was sleek, small, a weapon for close quarters, for professionals. She sat in the desk chair, heart rattling inside her chest like a caged bird. Julien was not an academic, not a philosopher, not a failed writer finding peace in the Parisian dusk. He was something else. There was a black notebook beside the gun, no title. She opened it. Inside were observations, detailed profiles of people. Emma's name was among them, her habits, her fears, things she'd told no one, not even Julien, things she barely admitted to herself. The last page was dated 2 days ago. It read, "She's beginning to see. Time to vanish." Her stomach dropped. A noise. The front door creaked open. Emma snapped the notebook shut, slid it into her coat, closed the drawer, locked the study door from the inside, then climbed out the small window above the desk, barefoot, into the rain-soaked alley behind the building. She didn't look back. She didn't have to. She ran until her legs screamed and her lungs threatened to collapse. When she finally stopped, shivering beneath a bridge along the Seine, she opened the notebook again. The next page had something she hadn't seen before, a sketch of her and a name. It wasn't hers. It was one she hadn't heard in 15 years. A name she'd buried with the rest of her childhood after the fire. Someone had found her. Someone who knew. And that someone was Julien Rousseau. But if he knew who she really was, then why was he pretending not to? And why was he planning to disappear? Emma needed answers. But there was only one person who had them. And she'd just escaped from him. Or so she thought. The streets blurred past Emma in a haze of headlights and rain. Her breath came in short bursts as she ducked into a 24-hour cafe just off Rue des Martyrs. It was mostly empty, save for an old man nursing a cognac in the corner and a waiter who looked half asleep. She slid into a booth near the back, peeled off her soaked coat, and pulled the notebook onto the table like a weapon. She opened it again, page by page, line by line. Julien had written about meetings with men and women under code names. The conductor, Vega, Harland. Places were referenced in riddles. There were notes about surveillance, manipulation, extraction. Some entries were clean. Others were scratched out, rewritten, corrected. And always, there were annotations about Emma. No, about her past. Subject remains unaware of full origin. Amnesia or repression. Does not appear to suspect real motive yet. Progressing according to protocol. She felt bile rise in her throat. What protocol? A waitress approached, young, indifferent. You okay, madam? Emma looked up, startled. Yes, just tea, please. The waitress nodded and left. Emma stared out the rain-blurred window. She hadn't heard that name in years, Sophia Cazeneuve. It was printed neatly next to the sketch of her face. A name the world thought had died with her parents in a fire on a winter night in 2010. A fire Emma, Sophia, had barely escaped. No one knew what happened. She'd been found wandering 5 towns over, silent for weeks, adopted, renamed, the past sealed away like a tomb. How had Julien found out? More importantly, why? Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. A message. Unknown. Number, come back. We need to talk. You're not in danger. Not from me. She stared at the screen. No typing bubbles. No follow-up. She turned the phone off. Across the cafe, the old man was watching her now. Not idly, not innocently. She stood, slid the notebook back under her coat, and walked out fast, not looking behind her. There was only one place she could go. A name she hadn't spoken in years. Marceline. Her mother's old friend, a former intelligence officer who disappeared after the fire. Emma had found a letter from her once, hidden inside a stuffed animal, urging her to forget, to never look back. Too late for that now. It took 2 hours and 5 wrong turns, but she found the door. A rusted metal frame on the outskirts of Belleville, covered in vines. She knocked. No answer. She knocked again, louder. Then the door opened, slow and silent. A woman stood in the threshold, mid-60s, short, silver hair, a scar across her left cheek like a whisper from another life. She studied Emma. Sophia, she said flatly. Emma blinked. You recognize me? I'd recognize your eyes anywhere. Julien. He knows who I am. He's been watching me. I found his notebook. He's not who he says. Marceline held up a hand. Get in. Now. Inside, the air was thick with incense and old wood. The walls were lined with books and weapons. Real weapons. Rifles, blades, encrypted tech. The home of someone who hadn't retired, just vanished. Emma handed over the notebook. Marceline flipped through it without emotion. Just a slight narrowing of her eyes. I warned them not to use you, she muttered. I said she wasn't ready. Emma stiffened. Use me? What do you mean? Marceline shut the book. Julian's not the villain. He's a cleaner, operates in the margins, retrieves lost assets. You were part of a program, Sophia. You and your parents. Classified intelligence work. Deep cover. The fire was a hit, not an accident. Emma's skin went cold. Why didn't anyone tell me? You were 9, Marceline said. Trauma like that, best not remembered. Your mind did what it had to, but they never stopped watching you, to see if you'd wake up. She pointed to the notebook. Julian was sent to monitor you, but something changed. He went off mission. He started caring. Emma shook her head. That's not what this says. It says he was going to vanish, that I was a threat, or that he was protecting you from someone else. Marceline handed the book back. There's one page missing. Ripped clean. The most recent one. Someone didn't want you to see it. Emma thought back to the gun. The locked drawer. The way the notebook had almost seemed staged. You think he left it for me to find? Marceline nodded. Or someone wanted you to. Outside, a car engine idled. Then another. Marceline moved fast, hit a switch under the bookshelf. A panel slid open. Downstairs. Now. They found you. Emma's breath caught. Who? Marceline didn't answer. The basement was concrete and steel. A safe house within a safe house. Marceline sealed the door behind them, then turned to Emma. There's something I never told your mother. Emma's heart pounded. What? You weren't the only one who survived that fire. A pause. Then, there was a brother, twin, taken. Emma's world tilted. That's impossible. I would remember. No, you wouldn't. Marceline pulled a file from a hidden wall compartment. Inside, photos. A boy who looked just like her, only older, harder, eyes like glass. Emma staggered back. He's alive. Marceline looked grim. He works for them now. The people who killed your parents. The people Julian tried to keep you from. Emma sank to the floor, notebook clutched in white-knuckled hands. Then why tell me now? Because your brother is looking for you, Marceline whispered. And he's already found Julian. Emma's eyes shot up. Julian's not running from you, Sophia. A beat of silence. He's running from him. Emma couldn't breathe. The silence in the bunker was too loud. So loud it felt like it was pressing against her skull. A brother, a twin, someone who looked like her. Someone who had grown up under the same sky with the same face, but on the other side of the fire. And now, he was hunting her. Why didn't anyone tell me? She whispered. Marceline knelt beside her, her voice quiet but sharp. Because he wasn't supposed to live. They thought he died in the explosion, but he didn't. He was taken by the same people who lit the match, raised in the dark, trained like a weapon, and now they've set him loose. Emma's fingers gripped the edges of the notebook. Her eyes drifted down to the ripped page. What was on the last page? She asked. I don't know, Marceline said. But I'd bet my life it was a warning. A loud crack split the silence. Gunfire. Somewhere above. Marceline snapped into motion. She opened a hidden drawer beneath the table and pulled out 2 pistols, handing one to Emma. Emma hesitated. You remember how to use one? Marceline asked. Her hand moved without thinking. Slide check, chamber load, safety off. Her voice was steady. Yeah, I do. Marceline gave a grim nod. Some things don't forget. More gunfire. Closer this time. A shout. Then footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. They've breached the entry, Marceline said. We need to move. Where? Emma asked. To someone who might still be on our side. Emma followed her into a back hallway that narrowed to a metal stairwell. They climbed in silence until they reached an exit covered in ivy. Marceline kicked it open and they stepped into the cold night air, the Paris skyline jagged behind clouds. A car waited by the curb, black, unmarked. As they approached, the passenger door opened. Julian stepped out. Emma froze. His face was pale, blood on his collar. He limped slightly as he moved toward them. "Emma," he said. She raised the gun. "Don't." He didn't flinch. "I don't have time to explain, but I didn't betray you. I tried to leave to keep you safe." Emma's voice was shaking now. "Then why was there a file on me? A map of my life?" "Because I was told you were dangerous," Julian said. "That you might be like him." Her hand trembled. "Like who?" He looked her in the eye. "Your brother." Marceline stepped between them. "Julian, you need to start talking. Now." Julian glanced around. "Not here. They'll have drones watching. We go to the catacombs." Emma narrowed her eyes. "What's in the catacombs?" Julian looked at her. "Truth." The drive was quiet, every street feeling like a trap. Paris had never seemed so hollow. The city of lights had become a city of shadows. They parked in a back alley beneath a cracked statue of St. Denis. Julian pulled up a rusted grate, revealing a tunnel. Beneath, they descended into the earth. The catacombs were colder than Emma remembered. She had visited them once as a teenager, never imagining she'd return with a gun in her coat and questions stitched into her blood. Bones lined the walls. Skulls stared back at her with empty, knowing sockets, as if they had seen this before. Julian led them to a sealed chamber marked with an old emblem, a triangle with a line through it. Emma stopped. "What is that?" Julian looked back. "The mark of the Obscura, the organization that raised your brother," Marceline hissed. "I thought they were dismantled." "They were," Julian said, "until someone rebuilt them. Smarter, quieter, and more personal." He pressed a panel. The door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the room was lit by a single bulb. A table stood in the center. On it, documents, files, a photograph. Emma picked it up. It was her brother, now a man, hair cropped short, a scar above, his brow, the same eyes, same bone structure, but empty. Cold. Name, subject 44A, code, Mirror Man. Emma's hands shook. "Why are you showing me this?" Julian's voice was tight. "Because he's been trained to find you, to study you, to mimic you, mimic me. He was conditioned to think like you, move like you, anticipate you. You're not just his target. You're his final test." Emma felt the floor tilt beneath her. Marceline stepped forward. "Why now? After all these years?" Julian hesitated, then pulled out the ripped page from his jacket. "I got it back, at a cost." He handed it to Emma. She unfolded it slowly. It was a message, written in the same careful hand as the others. "Emma, he's not coming to kill you. He's coming to become you. They've trained him to replace you completely. Your life, your memories, your identity. This is not about eliminating the past. It's about rewriting it." She stared at the words, the ink smudged in one corner. Her voice broke. "He wants to live my life." Julian nodded. "And if he does, no one will know he's not you." Marceline's face went pale. "He'll destroy everything she is, from the inside." Emma backed away from the table. "I have to stop him." Julian stepped closer. "Then you'll have to understand him first." Emma looked up at him, her voice low. "Then take me where he was made." Julian's eyes darkened. "You don't come back the same from a place like that." Emma met his gaze, fire igniting behind her words. Good. Because if her brother wanted to become her, he would have to survive her first. The jet-black van sliced through the countryside like a predator. Emma sat in the back, watching trees blur past in the moonlight. Julian drove, his jaw tense, eyes fixed on the horizon. Marceline sat beside him, weapon across her lap, always watching. The facility lay hours outside Paris, buried beneath a chateau that no longer existed on any official map. Once used by the resistance during World War II, it had been repurposed, restructured, then erased. It was where her brother had been taken, where his humanity had been undone. Emma tried to rehearse what she might say to him, if she got the chance, but words felt useless against someone who had been turned into an echo of her. Someone trained not just to kill, but to replace. She looked at her reflection in the van's window. Her eyes stared back, but they didn't feel like hers anymore. "You remember anything?" Julian asked suddenly. She glanced at him. About him. About the night of the fire. Emma paused. A scent came back to her. Smoke and iron. Screams muffled behind heat. And then, a hand, smaller than hers, pulling at her sleeve. A boy. Her twin. She blinked. "I remember a hand," she whispered. "I remember letting go." Julian said nothing. They arrived at dawn. The ruins of the chateau looked like a skeleton left to rot in the hills. Crumbled stone, vines reclaiming what man had forgotten. But beneath it, hidden under a hatch sealed, with biometric locks, was the real structure. Julian keyed in a sequence. The ground shifted with a low growl. A steel staircase descended into blackness. The cold hit her instantly, like stepping into a memory. The halls were white, clean, empty. The kind of silence that suggested terrible things had been scrubbed away. Emma's boots echoed. "This is where they brought him?" she asked. Julian nodded. "And others?" They moved deeper. Marceline checked corners, sweeping every corridor like a ghost hunter. Emma stopped at a door marked Subject Observation. 44A inside was a room, one bed, one desk, a wall of mirrors, and on the desk, a journal. She stepped forward, fingers brushing the cover. It was bound in leather, the corners frayed from use. She opened it. First entry, age 10. They told me she was gone, that she didn't make it. But I don't believe them. I see her in my dreams. Sometimes I remember her hand. She let go, but I don't blame her. I would have let go too. Emma turned the page. They tell me my name is 0. I think that means I don't exist. I don't feel real. She read faster. The entries grew darker, the writing sharper, more fractured. They show me videos of her. Tell me to walk like her, speak like her, smile like her. I ask why. They say, because you're her improvement. Her heart shattered. Julian was behind her. He wasn't trained to kill you. He was trained to become a better version of you. Marceline's voice cut through the stillness. "We have movement. Security breach. He's here." Emma turned, pulse exploding in her chest. "He came back." Julian nodded. To finish the program, they sprinted back to the main hallway. Footsteps echoed from the far end. Then a voice, deep, calm, terrifying in its familiarity. "I wondered how long it would take you to come home." Emma froze. The man stepped into view. Same eyes, same jawline, same soul, twisted in the furnace of indoctrination. Her brother. But his presence didn't feel like hers. He moved with calculation, like a shadow cast in reverse. "Hello, Sophia," he said. She swallowed. "That's not my name anymore," he smiled. "I know, that's why I'm here, to take it back." He took a step closer. Julian raised his gun. "Don't," Emma said quietly. Her brother stopped, expression unreadable. "You think you understand me now, because you read the book, because you know what they did." "I don't need to understand you," she said. "I just need to stop you." He tilted his head. "Then do it. Shoot me. Be the monster they were afraid you'd become." Emma didn't move. He reached into his coat, slowly, and pulled out a slip of paper. Held it up. Emma stepped forward. Took it. It was a photo of the two of them, as children, laughing. "We were never supposed to survive," he said. "But we did, and now only one of us gets to stay." He moved fast. Too fast. Julian fired, but her brother was already gone, vanishing down the corridor like a phantom. Emma chased after him, adrenaline replacing blood. The halls blurred. Sirens screamed to life. Red lights flashed. Marceline's voice rang in her earpiece. "He's heading for the access tunnel, West Wing." Emma ran faster. She turned a corner, and there he was, waiting. Gun drawn, arm steady, so was she. A perfect mirror. No time for speeches. They fired. Once. Twice. Emma dropped behind cover, breath heaving. A groan echoed. Then silence. She stepped forward, slowly, gun raised. Her brother lay on the ground, bleeding, but alive. He looked up, at her, eyes calm. "You win," he said. "So go ahead, finish it." Emma knelt beside him. "You're not a monster. You were made into one." He smiled faintly. "Then unmake me." A pause. She reached out, took his hand. His grip was weak, but it was there. Behind them, Julian approached. Marceline too. "Don't," she said. "He's not our enemy anymore." Julian looked at her, then at the man on the floor. "Then who is?" Marceline turned sharply. "We'll find out." But Emma already knew. The people who built this place, the ones who wrote the script for their lives. This wasn't the end, it was only the beginning. 2 days later, Emma stood on a balcony overlooking the Seine. Morning mist curled above the river like a ghost reluctant to leave. Below, Paris hummed back to life, as if the world hadn't almost collapsed from the weight of secrets buried too deep. Behind her, the apartment was quiet. Julian slept on the couch, his arms still in a sling. Marceline sat at the kitchen counter, cleaning her gun. And in the back room, under guard, was her brother. His real name was Elias. He hadn't spoken much since the incident, not about the people who made him, not about the drills or the reprogramming, but in the rare, fragile silences between his breaths, Emma could hear what he wasn't saying. He was afraid of what they'd made him forget, and maybe more afraid of what he still remembered. Emma turned as Marceline entered the balcony, sipping. "Dark coffee from a chipped mug. You didn't sleep," Marceline said. Emma shook her head. "He dreams in whispers. I can't tell if they're his or mine." Marceline leaned on the railing. "The agency's fractured. Whoever was rebuilding the Obscura, they went underground. Their trail ends in Croatia. But someone out there still has the blueprint." Emma closed her eyes. "Then this isn't over." "No," Marceline said, "but it's not the same war anymore." There was a soft knock from inside. Julian stood at the door, a small folder in his hand. "I decrypted the last file on Elias," he said. "It wasn't just about you." Emma's heart kicked. "What do you mean?" He handed it to her. Inside were photos, scans of DNA sequences, behavioral profiles, and one report stamped Obscura, Phase 3. Subject 44A is no longer the prototype. He is the conduit. The psychological map extracted from Subject 44A will be used to create multiple behavioral clones, designed to infiltrate societal institutions by mimicking ideal personas. Initial target archetype, the truth seeker. Codename, Sophia. Emma dropped the file. Julian stared at her. "They didn't just train him to become you, they trained him to be the mold." Marceline's expression went cold. "They're making more." Emma's pulse throbbed in her ears. "How many?" Julian's eyes flickered. "I don't know. But Phase 3 went live a year ago. That's when the disappearances started." Emma looked out over the city, as if she could see them. Reflections, in windows, shadows walking in other people's lives. "What do they want?" she asked. Julian hesitated. "Obedience, power, control without question. If you replace enough voices of dissent with perfect imitations, truth becomes whatever they program." Marceline cursed under her breath. Emma's thoughts spiraled. Everything she had been, everything Elias had suffered. It wasn't just about one life. It was a blueprint for mass erasure, for turning authenticity into a liability. "We need to expose them," Emma said. "All of it. Burn it to the ground." Julian nodded. There's one place left to look. A server farm outside of Dubrovnik, coded under a fake AI research firm. That's where the command signals originated. Then we go, Emma said. Marceline raised an eyebrow. Just like that? Emma looked toward the back room. I won't run anymore. I won't let them rewrite who we are. The next day, they were in the air. The flight to Croatia was quiet, except for the low drone of the engines and the sound of Elias scribbling in a notebook. He hadn't said much, but he'd insisted on coming. Emma sat beside him. He paused his writing. Do you believe I can change? She looked at him, really looked. The scar above his brow, the way he held the pen like it might break, the tremble in his fingers. I believe that if you weren't already changing, she said softly, you wouldn't be asking. He nodded. When they landed, a contact of Marceline's met them with a van. They traveled inland, toward a cluster of mountains that looked like broken spines under a grey sky. The facility was camouflaged, buried into a cliffside, masked by decades of false identities. But inside, it was alive. Servers hummed like 1,000 insect wings. Cool blue light bathed the walls. Screens blinked with faces, some familiar, some not. Behavioral overlays, predictive models, a new kind of war machine, built not on bombs, but on replication. Emma stepped toward a terminal and inserted the decryption drive Julian had built. Lines of code scrolled, access granted, a live feed appeared, cities, schools, courtrooms, news stations. In each, someone wearing someone else's skin, perfect smiles, calculated empathy, manufactured authenticity. Elias stared in horror. They're everywhere. Julian looked at Emma. One command wipe. We take this server out, the network goes blind. Emma's fingers hovered above the keys. Then Elias said, wait. They turned to him. If you destroy it, they'll rebuild it, somewhere else. But if we leak it, everything, every test, every file, they'll never be able to hide it again. Emma hesitated. He was right. Sunlight destroys shadows, but only if people see. She nodded and moved her hands. The upload began. The truth raced across the world in ones and zeros. Classified footage, psychological profiles, the plan for global mimicry. By nightfall, the world knew. Chaos erupted. Investigations, protests, arrests. Some of the mimics fled, others were captured, many vanished, but the mirror had cracked. Back in Paris, Emma stood on the Pont Neuf as dusk fell. Elias beside her, Marceline and Julian just behind. You think they'll come back? Elias asked. Emma looked at their reflections in the water. They never left, she said. But now, at least we know who we are. He looked at her. And who are you? She smiled. I'm the one who didn't disappear. A beat of silence. Then, if this story moved you, if it made you think about identity, truth, or the price of silence, leave a comment, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because some mirrors aren't meant to reflect, but to reveal. Fade to black.